Hi, I'm Jeff, and welcome to another one of my videos where I take a look at all the new comic books coming out on either October 10th or 11th, 2023, and I ask myself the question, what one new comic book would I buy this week if I could buy just one book? Usually we start off these videos by taking a look back at my pick from 2 weeks ago, but I didn't have a pick 2 weeks ago. I haven't had a pick in several weeks, so we're going to skip right past that part of this video and move on to the books that are coming out this week. And in fact, I do have a just one book pick this week. I'm excited about that because like I just said, there have been several weeks where I haven't had a pick. Now my pick this week is a bit arbitrary and might only be something that resonates with me very specifically, but it's still a book that I am going to recommend to all of you because it does sound interesting to me. We'll get into that later on in this video. Let's first focus on the honorable mentions that I have for the books that are coming out this upcoming week. The first book I want to tell you about is House of Slaughter, issue number 18 from Boom Studios. Those of you who watch my videos on the regular know that I am a gigantic James Tynion IV fan, specifically a massive Something is Killing the Children fan. House of Slaughter is part of the Something is Killing the Children universe, so of course, I'm excited about it. I've been pulling it since issue number 1, and I'm going to pull it until the day it is done. So because I'm pulling it, I mentioned it to all of you as one of my honorable mentions. The next book I want to mention to you is a new book. It is called Captain Marvel, Assault on Eden, issue number 1 from Marvel Comics. Basically, I'm going to pull back the curtain here a little bit for you. This is so that Marvel has some kind of comic book on the shelf at your local comic shop in anticipation for the Marvel's movie, which is coming out. I mean, it's just pretty clear to me that this was something special that was cultivated by Marvel just so that they could have something additional on the shelf, Captain Marvel related, just in case anybody sees the movie and they're like, oh, I want to go read some Captain Marvel, they can go straight to their local comic shop and pick this up. If you're a big Captain Marvel fan, here you go. Or if you want maybe a little bit more Captain Marvel information before seeing the movie, here's another excuse to maybe pick this up. The next book I want to let you know about is a new book. It is Capwolf and the Howling Commandos, issue number 1 from Marvel Comics. It's October, it's spooky season, and you'll see on this list we have more than a handful of spooky stories in comic book form to tell you about. This is a Captain America story where he becomes a werewolf and he leads a group of the Howling Commandos to try to fight the Nazis. Okay. That's basically all you need to know. If you wanted a Captain America as a werewolf themed World War II story, you got one coming up this week. The next book I want to let you know about is The Superior Spider-Man Returns, issue number 1. It's a one-shot from Marvel Comics. Basically, all I'm going to say is that if you are a fan of the Superior Spider-Man era of Spider-Man, for those of you who don't know, in fact, I'm not especially familiar with it myself, it was during a time where Dr. Octopus inhabited the body of Peter Parker and still had the mind of Doc Ock, but so he lived out, he worked as Spider-Man, even though he was Doc Ock for a time. Pretty crazy, but apparently it was pretty entertaining as well. So if you want more of that story, here's an opportunity to check that out this week. The next book I want to let you know about is a new book. It is called A Haunted Girl, issue number 1 of a 4-issue limited series from Image Comics. The description is really short. I'll read it to you very quickly. Cleo, an adopted 16-year-old Japanese American whose depression drove her to near suicide, is trying unsuccessfully to reintegrate back into her old life. But her struggles are just beginning as she encounters an increasingly terrifying succession of ghosts. Is she losing her grip on reality, or is the explanation much worse? Okay, not much for me to get excited about in that description, but it seems to do a pretty accurate job of, or legitimate job, I'm having a hard time talking today, sorry, to tell us kind of what it's about. If it sounds interesting to you, maybe you consider picking it up. The next book I want to let you know about is another new book. It is American Psycho, issue number 1 of a 5-issue limited series from Massive. Basically, this is a comic book adaptation of the movie American Psycho, starring Christian Bale. Great, creepy, disturbing movie that's worth seeing, absolutely. And if you're a fan of the movie, which a lot of people are, and you want more from that storyline in your comic book reading this spooky month of October, well, Massive has delivered on your behalf. The next book I want to let you know about is a new book. It is called Destiny's Gate, issue number 1 of a 4-issue limited series from Image Comics. Basically, this is kind of an anthology series which means it's a bunch of short stories about people who made certain not great decisions in their lives, and so they end up at Destiny's Gate, where they have the opportunity to fight for a chance to survive and start anew, maybe, reconcile all the mistakes that they made in their life, or they just succumb to their inner demons and end it all for you, and worse, yours. So it's just a story about redemption stories about people who have made bad decisions in their life, getting an opportunity to potentially turn that around. These could be great stories, could be very entertaining. If you're looking for something along those lines, maybe consider picking up Destiny's Gate, coming out this week. The next book I want to tell you about is a new book. It is Night of the Living Dead, Kin, issue number 1 from American Mythology Productions. Basically, this is just more in the storyline of the classic horror film Night of the Living Dead. So, if you are a fan of the original Night of the Living Dead and fan of comic books, and you want to read some more Night of the Living Dead stories this month, this spooky month, well, here you go. Keeping in the zombie vein, I want to tell you about another zombie book coming out this week. It's a new book called Vikings, issue number 1 of a 2-issue limited series from Fair Square Comics LLC. Basically, all you need to know is zombie Vikings. I believe they're fighting other non-zombie Vikings. Vikings are some of the most awesome fighters in history, and so having them battle against zombies is probably going to be pretty entertaining, pretty gory, pretty exciting. If these things sound interesting to you, maybe consider picking up Vikings this week. The next book I want to tell you about is a new book. It is called Knights, issue number 1 from Image Comics. Here is part of the description. Supernatural creatures exist among the common folk, and America is comprised of just 31 states. This is an alternate reality, 2003, and Vince Okonma has lost his parents and moved in with his secret mercenary cousin and his video game making roommate when he befriends the greatest vampire who's ever lived, and that's just the first 20 pages. Welcome to Florida. A new version of urban gothic adventure starts here. Youth is wasted on the young. So if you want kind of a vampire story that's maybe a little bit on the lighter side, maybe consider checking out Knights this upcoming week. Of course, there's other horror books coming out this week, and here's another vampire book. My next honorable mention is Operation Sunshine, issue number 1 from Dark Horse Comics. Here's part of the description. A group of young, alienated vampires, known as bugs, plot to steal a magical object from ancient, monstrous vampires to turn themselves back to human. Along the way, they uncover a sprawling monster underground, a top-secret plot run by the Elder Creatures, elite militant vampire slayers, and madness beyond imagining, blocking their path to humanity. This one actually sounds a little bit more interesting to me than Knights. It's got a good conflict, good journey. Sounds like it's gonna build out a nice big world for you. If I was looking for a vampire themed something or other this month or this upcoming week specifically, I might consider picking up Operation Sunshine. The next book I want to tell you about is a new book. It is called Simon Says, issue number 1 of a 12-issue limited series from Blood Moon Comics LLC. Here's the very short description. Simon is a mental patient that struggles with voices telling him to kill, to be evil, and to embrace what he is. If that weren't bad enough, there's a deeper war brewing, being he's a descendant of Cain. Okay, internal conflict and interesting backstory. The covers are telling me that this might be pretty graphic and gory, and that might be fun and entertaining for you. So if it is, it might be one worth checking out this week. The next book I want to tell you about is The Madness, issue number 3 of a 6-issue limited series from AWA. I mentioned this because I've been mentioning it ever since issue number 1. It was a just one book pick that I enjoyed a lot that I have decided to keep reading, and I will be reading all 6 issues, and it's on my pull, so I mentioned it to you this week. If you haven't been reading The Madness, but you've been interested, I'm sure you could find issues 1 and 2 in addition to issue number 3 this week. I recommend it. I have been enjoying it, and I look forward to checking it out this upcoming week. The next book I want to tell you about is a new book. It is Batman, City of Madness, issue number 1 of a 3-issue limited series from DC Black Label. This, I'll say right off the bat, this is from writer and artist Christian Ward, so that's good. This is a Black Label book, which I believe is in their oversized square-bound format. People have mixed feelings about that, but I actually kind of enjoy it. The plot is basically that below the city of Gotham is another Gotham, where there's kind of like nightmare, twisted versions of everything that's in the Gotham above, including Batman himself. The door to this underground Gotham, this twisted Gotham, is guarded by the Court of Owls. So now, above ground Batman has to work with the Court of Owls to try to make sure that nothing from the below ground Gotham get out when they should not be getting out. It sounds like it actually could be a pretty entertaining and enjoyable series. It is a $6.99 book. I don't know how oversized it is. It doesn't say specifically, but it is in a prestige, better format. So some of that money is justified. I would love to check this out and read it, but I'm not going to end up spending the money on it. But it does sound pretty interesting. If I was more loosey-goosey, so to speak, with my spending these days, I would definitely pick this up. The next book I want to tell you about is a new book. It is Wesley Dodd's The Sandman, issue number 1 of a 6-issue limited series from DC. This says, the Golden Age Sandman returns in a new noir mystery. Okay, I didn't know there was a Golden Age Sandman, but there is a Golden Age Sandman, completely different than the Neil Gaiman Sandman that I am aware of. But this Golden Age Sandman, this story is basically, he has some kind of sleeping gas that he uses, I guess, to fight crime. It says that in his experiments trying to develop this sleeping gas, he made some that were rejects, that were very, very deadly. And apparently those have been stolen, and somebody's using them for bad purposes. So the Sandman, Wesley Dodd's The Sandman, is trying to stop the person who is using his failed experiments in a violent way. All right. Could be entertaining if you're interested in checking out anything about the Golden Age Sandman. And those are all my honorable mentions, and that brings me to the one book that I would buy this week if I could buy just one book. And that book is Midlife, or How to Hero at 50. Here's the description. Oh, this is from Image Comics. Reuben Kwan is a 50-year-old firefighter who's been afraid of fire his whole life. Instead of running into burning buildings, he pushes papers, living in the shadow of his father, who died a hero on the job. After 25 years in the LAFD, he's firmly in the middle of an unremarkable life, until his new wife gets pregnant and a random act of courage reveals that Reuben is fireproof. New York Times bestselling writer Brian Bucciato, I definitely didn't pronounce that correctly, teams up with star artist Stefano Simone to tell the totally relatable, sometimes cringy, story of a middle-aged dad who's about to find out that his new powers have major strings attached. Okay, so this is not entirely a unique and new storyline. There's stories about unlikely heroes getting superpowers and having to adjust to that all the time. But this one seems to have like a little bit of a different spin to it, in that we're focusing on somebody who's in their 50s. And I gotta tell you, for the longest time I didn't have a pick this week. But then the more I looked at this book, the more I got interested in it. The more I read this description, the more I thought, you know what? I want to see that movie. I want to see the movie about this guy finding out that he's fireproof and flipping the hero switch. It might be for a few reasons. One, I'm pushing my midlife, I'm an older person, and so this is relatable to me directly. In addition, I kind of like superhero stories that aren't about established superheroes. I'll just say real fast, I recently had the opportunity to see The Matrix again in the movie theater. I was so amped about The Matrix when it first came out, in part because during that time in 1999 there weren't very many superhero movies, but the way that movie ends, it gives you the promise of this amazing new superhero that we have to enjoy. Well, the other Matrix movies kind of fell flat and didn't really capitalize on the promise of Neo as superhero, but I like new superheroes that aren't already established by DC or Marvel Comics. And this, I think, could be a fun and entertaining one. Now, people in their 50s are not the biggest movie audiences and not the biggest draw for movie studios, so maybe they're not going to make a movie that maybe appeals to people who are a little bit older. But just the story sounds interesting to me. The story sounds fun. The story sounds entertaining and interesting to me. So for all those reasons, in addition to, I'll be honest, for the past few weeks I haven't had a pick, and I wanted to have a pick this week, and I almost didn't have a pick, and then I was like, you know what? I want to pick this up. I want to check it out. I'm excited enough with the description to pay the $3.99 and that I wasn't going to spend on a comic book this week, and pick this up and read it. So for all those reasons, I have decided to make Midlife, or How to Hero at 50, my just one book pick for the week. Okay, that's it. I hope there was something useful and or entertaining in this video to you. Likes are appreciated by me, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, please do it. And if you haven't already subscribed, I invite you to go ahead and do that right now. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.